wife and I talked about adoption before we ever got married. The original plan, when we actually thought we were in control of our lives, was that we were going to have 2 biological children. We were going to adopt 2. But then we met with a geneticist who told us that if we had biological children, there was going to be a 1 in 4 chance that we would have a daughter with my eyebrows. And so obviously, we were very concerned about that, as were my in-laws. We became foster parents in 2000. And originally, we wanted to have absolutely nothing to do with biological family members of our kids. We had this attitude that they had had an opportunity for the kids, and they had blown it, and now it was our turn. We were very holy at the time, and then we took in our first two children, our 2 boys, and we fell in love with them right away. And then we started hearing the stories of neglect and abuse that they had suffered, and we wanted even less to do with their biological family, especially their biological parents. And so we wanted to become angry at those who had abused and neglected these children. We wanted to vilify them. We wanted to judge them. And then we discovered that the system itself that was put in place to help these kids heal and keep these kids safe actually set us up as adversaries with the biological family members as well. I don't know if that's been your experience, but we found ourselves oftentimes as rivals with them, rivals for the kids' affection, for their love, and ultimately even for their custody. Well, we discovered that this creates a sort of tension in the kids' lives, and it's a tension that kids who have been traumatized just don't need or deserve. But how do we get around that? How do we go into foster care and deal on a relational basis with people who have abused, neglected, and abandoned children that we love? Well, I think the key is found in what Jesus calls the second greatest commandment, and that is to love our neighbor as ourselves. Now, it's very easy for us to dismiss that and say that the biological family members of our kids are not our neighbor, but then Jesus tells the parable of the Good Samaritan, and we learn in that our neighbor, in God's eyes, is not necessarily the person that we would normally associate with. In fact, it's someone that we may have tension with, it may have even hatred toward. We eventually met Grandma Sandy and our boy's biological mother, Cammie, and we fell in love with both of these people right away. And we started hearing their stories, and we realized that none of these biological family members, none of these biological relatives set out to abuse their kids. But a lot of times these were people who had very difficult upbringings themselves. And we discovered that they were broken people made in the image of God and therefore were worthy of love and dignity. And so we've continued those relationships even past adoption. We've discovered that allowing positive relationships having positive relationships between us and the birth families have helped the kids in numerous ways. And one of the ways that we've discovered is that it actually helps minimize the amount of time a child is in foster care. I think we'd all agree that the less time a child is in foster care, the better. And we've discovered that if we can be a support system to a biological mother, then she may be able to reunify safely with her child in a more timely manner. But on the flip side of that, if she can trust that she's going to be able to see her child after the adoption, then she may be able to let go in those situations where reunification is not called for. And so we've actually been able to we've had birth parents have actually signed away their rights in some situations to allow us to adopt their kids. It hasn't been easy. Every situation is different. There are times that contact is not called for, but you just need to be wise and you need to stay open to what God has called you to do. This all culminated in about 7 years ago. In 2007, we got the call that Cammie was in the hospital in ICU. And again, we had originally wanted nothing to do with our kids' biological parents, but we actually spent the day, hours with her on her deathbed, and I was able to lead her to Christ on her deathbed. And I think about that, and I think, thank God that His Spirit changed my heart toward my neighbor. Thank you very much.